There are 1,000 reasons I don't support Cornel West. I don't dwell on them. I don't feel the need to think about them very much. They're impregnated with a great deal of memory of harassment by his troops, working with Clint Eastwood while claiming to be perfectionists, justifying them being busybodies. They're a whirlwind of hillbillies who hide the fact that they're invading your privacy in acts of poaching. And I'll explain why it goes back to West being one of the names in the Burston letters. You see, the idea of the world being an arc was used to justify AIDS and COVID. I'm not sure that that's what Bobby Kennedy has in mind. He may just feel that he shouldn't be teaching as a teaching concept something that gets stolen by interlopers. But I am sure that whatever else, Cornel West's mafia saw me go to the Pit News and try to get attention and help. Somewhat truthfully, they said I was interfering. I was interfering with what they planned to do to me. When I wrote my recommendations for Pit divestment, I drew upon my reasoning powers and the best of my thinking skills and extended concern, compassion, and energy into the Pit environment in the hopes that they would lead the way and bring about divestment before it was politically too late to make a difference morally. Wesley Posvar flew off and immediately divested when he saw what he saw in South Africa. I believe it contributed to the release of Nelson Mandela, but that was not on my mind. I'll explain what was on my mind. What was on my mind was the fact that I grew up in Pittsburgh and was a Pittsburgh public school student who was tortured and bullied, largely by the KKK. I now know the West Mafia knew all about it and were seeking to use me. As a result, they became bedlamite and hysterical when I reached out to people like Peter Gabriel and got replies. He too already knew how I was being used. I never positioned myself as anything other than a person who was poet, who was maybe even a wayward poet. I wasn't looking for election. I wasn't looking for political recognition. I certainly wasn't looking to elevate myself into the odds of a desirable candidate to be associated with the Trump regime or the Kennedys or anyone else. I never considered myself anything other than someone who had been worked over and was in need of intervention and help from the University of Pittsburgh, but they were just deriding me and mocking me and using me. The magnitude of how they used me, they claimed, was a justification for saying that great things were expected of me. Great things were not expected of me by anyone who said that, because great things can't be expected of a wounded person. First aid is expected of the hospital community when you're dealing with a wounded person. Cornel West comes from some berserk spinner beanie mentality of the foreign establishment associated with the German Green Party. It has nothing to do with Pittsburgh Public Schools, nothing whatsoever to do with CRT. It's spinner beanie stuff, and it's destructive and it's greedy for retro abuse. What he considers abuse that he considers satisfying to Gerald Horne's concepts of retribution. I have nothing to say to any of that. I'll tell you my experience. Altered ice was ruled out for me by the principal because I couldn't keep up with the Jewish hate criminals I was having terrible difficulties avoiding being mocked, pushed around, derided. He said, I'm going to send you to an alternative high school. So I went up to Lecce. Lecce was a place where people had a casual attitude about maybe going to school and learning something. That's all we did. Mostly it was black kids. They didn't push me around. They didn't tag me. They didn't hit me. They didn't do anything all that obnoxious. Once one of them pushed a brick where I could see it off of a roof. I don't think he was aiming at me or anybody else. He was just being um, a spectacle. The only thing I can say about it is I've been up there since and been shaken down by a woman who showed me her ID. It gets a little bit zany in the Hill District. I've been up to the Hill District to go to the Crawford Grill. At the bottom line is, when I went back to North Carolina, went with my father and learned to type, and then back to Alden, I to the governor's banner year of straight A's and won the governor's school scholarship for my poetry. I was just trying to integrate myself and get along with my peers. That to me was anti-racist. Just get along with your peers. There were people manipulating me. I now know they implanted a neuroplasm. I also now know that there were people in the NAACP who knew about it. The teacher in choir is the one who sicked Andrea Swimmer on me because they knew they could blackmail me with it was manufacture of compromise. This is where Cornel West is coming from. He doesn't care at all about safety on the streets. He pours drama division things. He says, you must be squeezing through the eye of a needle, queer ball. You must fulfill Clint Eastwood's hurdles as the seven labors of Hercules. Or you will have to pay the punishment of my not getting tenure at Harvard. What these people did was so cruel and sickening. You know, I mean, I don't think I am the odd man out. I think that the Syrians who were nobody helped after the earthquake, the Iraqi children who were bombed, the Yemeni school bus children who were drowned, they're not odd men out. They're people who are crushed beneath the wheel. Cornel West wants to choose innocent people and crush them. He says it's only fair because he's the black man. That's the whole situation in the United States. As for Russia, if they're playing Cruella too, it's not that I'm the odd man out. There's people suffering from unjustified hatred all over the world. When I was a child, about 11 years old, and had been attacked ferociously and subject to fumes, I remember thinking Einstein said that the world is on a curve. That means our lives repeat, and I don't want to ever have to live this one again. Do you know how happy I had been until then? And Nelson Harrison, one of the West Mafia, comes up to me and says, you're not special. So I'm not the odd man out. It happens to Syrian school children. But to actually poach somebody's mind as an act of the Pittsburgh Public Schools, as a deliberate act of the Pittsburgh Public Schools. Look at the price I had to pay. And Cornel West is still angling for more. Look at the price I had to pay while they were playing Pussyball over Midori Goto. The price I had to pay for trusting the Jewish community. The price I had to pay. That was the crime I committed. I trusted the public school system and the people around me in the public schools, the black people. One of them came up to me at Lecce and said, I dig your style. And I smiled so big he changed his mind. I was gratified. I was pleased. I was looking for friends. I wanted to be liked. You want to know the price I paid for that, besides losing my loved ones, besides being castrated, besides being hated for snitching on John Schulman, who they finally arrested. I got Parkinson's. I got diabetes. I was brutalized so they could squeeze me through the eye of a needle. Why did they do that? I was just somebody who said I can enter as a high school student the Bashir Martin Luther King contest. They won't even let me read the essays. Carnegie Mellon's website is shut down. All I was saying was I was a reasonable, intelligent person in high school who needed nurture and attention. They wouldn't even let me go to the Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf. A wonderful girl who had Down syndrome and who struggled to understand things by keeping real. That's how she understood things. She has Down syndrome, she was deaf, and she was an orphan from Korea. But she kept real. That's how she understood things. She didn't go off into spinner beanie country. She kept real. She heard the things that they were saying about me, and she said, "What a lie." She just dismissed it. That's Pittsburgh. What does in the world does torturing somebody have to do with making them special? It is asinine.